Okay, conceptualization. You may get the question on conceptualization. First thing you have to do in your preparation, can you guess what the issues might be that we ask you to solve? Let's refresh ourselves on what it was. Conceptualization is the first stage. It's about thinking about putting a range together. So it's about our product development team, our design team, our research team. And it's asking geography, where physically should our team be? Should they be in which country, in which city, in which suburb, indeed in which street should they be located? Uh, why? Because remember we said that the place, the physical environment that you're in can influence your creativity and give you a competitive edge. So we said, Beethoven hung out in Vienna in the 1700s because that's where all the great musicians, all the great composers were, and that's also where the money was. So he went there to be inspired and try to advance his career that way, or his art that way. Michelangelo and Da Vinci went to Florence in Italy in the 1500s, again for exactly the same reasons. London in 1980s, the British economy was opening up and it was quite dynamic, changing, lots of opportunities, lots of tension because there was a lot of change happening, but it also gave rise to edgy designers like Vivienne Westwood. In terms of music, we looked at the Sex Pistols, really avant-garde, innovative, different, and that gave them that edge. Now, Seoul 2010, so the emphasis has shifted to Asia now. That's the real growth and exciting part of the world. And we're looking at K-pop. So certainly, if you want to leverage off or enter into the youth market in many parts of Asia, definitely need to understand K-pop, the motivation behind it, the bands, how they operated, to give you that. So thinking about where in the world you're located and why you're located would help you with this first one. Space is the internal space, the actual building itself. And remember, we said the actual building and your office can be a place of inspiration and increased productivity just simply by the design of it, where your desk is, how much light is in the building, how good the air is in the building itself. So we looked at a video on that, check that one out in terms of space. And finally, the philosophy of the building, the philosophy of the company. So we looked at that from a few different perspectives, but down here, uh, you remember Rip Curl, we said was located in Torquay. Why were they in Torquay? Because it's near their inspirational source, which is the beach. So it sort of links into geography to some extent. And remember, would a product developer for Rip Curl be better, get more inspired by getting on a number 19 tram going up Sydney Road every morning during peak hour, or by walking from their house along the beach to head office every day? Which one of those would give them a competitive advantage? Which environment would give them that advantage? So this whole conceptualization is looking at it from one or three of those perspectives. And the question you'll get on the test will be broad enough where you can sort of focus on one more so than the others, although it might be worth mentioning it. So in terms of structure, once again, identify any of the theories that may be applicable to the potential problems at this stage. So we go back and look at our list of theories and say, well, which one of these relates to what I just spoke about? And sort of, short list the ones that you think relate and how they relate, obviously. For a credit then, just go through the material, the lecture tutorials material to find any example. So Rip Curl's an example. The New York Garment District is another example of a cluster. So even if you put those two in, you can potentially get a credit. Finding your own examples, another company like Rip Curl and where they operate could give you a distinction. And then finally, your high distinction is how well you put the whole thing together, how well you write it. So conceptualization will give you a brand. We'll say that the head office or the design team isn't inspired. What could you do to put them somewhere else, whether it be a different physical space, a different physical country or city? and what's the philosophy behind what they're doing? How are they inspired by the geography and space in terms of that philosophy? So remember, the philosophy for Kmart is very different to the philosophy for Versace. In short, you wouldn't send your Kmart team, you wouldn't necessarily send your Kmart team to Rome or Milan um, for their inspiration. You might, but bit of a stretch. Okay, that's your first one.